You're listening to the Overcast. Sunshine on a cloudy day. Part of the Oversoul Gaming channel. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Overcast, the entertainment podcast focused on fun. I am your host, Justin, aka Oversoul.
And I'm your co-host, Nick, aka The Vaping Fiend.
And we're bringing you sunshine on a cloudy day. And today's ray of sunshine is going to end up being a topic on hidden gems. We're bringing you lots of hidden sunshines, diamonds in the rough, if you will, games, movies, and all that.
Yes.
That are that you've probably never heard of, or maybe you have, but no one's talking about it. So that'll be when we get to the topic of interest in this episode. But first, Nick, tell me, what's up with you? What's new?
So, I had my daughter for an entire week, and I loved every minute of it. I got to take her to Paw Patrol Live. She loved it. Oh my gosh. I think I was more excited to see her reactions more than anything, and I couldn't be happier. I am so glad that I got to do that with her. Took her ice skating at one of the local ice arenas here. She got to skate on the ice for the first time. She had a blast with that. News, something that we talked about before that has been leading up. I actually got to ride in the passenger seat of my mom's car while we were driving on the track at the Rockford Speedway, and bro, this was an experience of a lifetime. And the fact that this is the last season for the Rockford Speedway, probably my last chance to be able to get to do something like that, is just, I don't know. It's a good feeling that I finally was able to do something like that. Actually go down onto the track. I've been in the pits before, years ago. But being on the track in a car was a different experience all on its own, and it was nothing but adrenaline. Like, we they had a burnout contest after before the burnout contest. There was everybody went that raced that day got to go out on the track again at the same time as everybody else, following the official pace car of NASCAR, Daytona 500, February 18th, 1979. Everybody got to go out and follow this car, and it was the entire track was but the car, it was bumper to bumper, bro. Like, it was ridiculous.
Very nice. I know, at the time of recording this, you and I actually recently hung out with a couple of friends of ours over this Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, we did.
We went to our friend Kyle's house.
Yes.
And we hung out, and we, we ate, and we had some drinks, and we just hung back and, shot the shit, and, I played some VR. He had me try the Edge of Nowhere game.
Mm-hmm.
I was glad I went into it blind because I didn't know what to expect out of it. I wasn't expecting it to be in third person, and I don't like when that kind of third-person game is in VR because the floatiness of you hanging behind them screws with my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the only VR things that messes with me. But anyways, I liked the game that he had me play.
Yes.
I was genuinely surprised by it. After I got used to the thing, I got more used to it. It was really cool. Um, and I was not expecting it to be a Lovecraftian horror game with a giant Cthulhu monster. That took me by surprise, but it was a very nice surprise
Yeah,
because I love Lovecraftian horror, you know.
right.
Not Lovecraft himself. He was not a very good person, but he wrote some damn good horror. And
Yeah.
it takes a very special touch to emulate that properly, and
Hmm.
they they did in that game. But anyways, the rest of the weekend, yeah, we had a real good time. Got to meet some of his extended family, and his dog Max was hanging out with us. Uh, and then the next day, you, and then the very next day, we went to our friend PJ's house and had some leftover cookout food and hung out there for a bit. It
Those
was so good.
those beans were fire,
Yeah.
bro. Those beans were so good.
Oh yeah. They were. So yeah, that was kind of our Memorial Day thing. Really, that's basically what we did with for Memorial Day. Is
Yeah.
we hung out with our friends and all that.
Hell,
So
yeah.
all right.
You know,
Well,
tomorrow I am excited because I am going to my first Pride event.
oh, it is that
Last
month.
time it is Happy Pride Month. So the only Pride event that I've been to outside of this was at Disney Gay Days in Orlando, Florida at Walt Disney World. Back in I think it was either 2009 or 2010. Only difference between then and now is before I was just an ally. Now I'm part of the community. Uh, LGBTQIA plus. Yes, I am excited for this.
Very nice. Very nice.
excited. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
you and I
I
both technically fall in that community as you
yes,
identify as
pa-
pansexual,
yes.
and I am a demisexual, which is just like
Mhm.
one step below asexual
Yes.
on the ace spectrum. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Um, I have no idea how to segue that into the next thing, so I'm just gonna say media corner.
Perfect.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Media Corner, the part of the show where we talk about the
Yes.
things that we've consumed lately and whether we like them or not, and or some entertainment related news. I'm gonna kick us off
Yes.
today because earlier today I got a rental in the mail from Gamefly, and I already went into it with low expectations because I had seen some very unfavorable reviews and screenshots. Um, but it's the new Lord of the Rings Gollum game, which
Oh, they did our boy bad. They did our boy they did our boy dirty.
yeah. So the first thing that I noticed immediately is that Gollum's character design is bad, and not only
It-
that, but um, his voice acting is also really bad. It's off. You can tell that he's doing the lines like Gollum, but the voice itself sounds more like it belongs to a goblin. It's 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 very much like this, you know. It's I don't know how to it's weird. Um,
they should
it's
have
not
gotten
it's
Andy
not
Circus.
it's not throaty enough. That these developers didn't have the budget for Andy Serkis. That's very clear by this game's visuals. I can't lie.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's supposed to go like this.
yeah. See, there's be you know, and if you can't get a good impressionist, I don't know, just use
Mm.
an AI or something. It'd just be like
Puppets?
anything would have been better than what they chose to do with this. It's not throaty enough, you know. It's very. It almost sounds like the actor just doesn't care, you know, like they're not even trying that hard. They're like, whatever, it's a paycheck. What I will say though
That's
is the other actors give a
yeah.
shit. The other actors are putting
They
effort
can't.
in, but not. And um, like Gandalf, his character design is fine. His voice acting is fine. You know, it's not supposed to look like the movies. It's based off the books, not the movies. You know, it's more of a. This is
Right.
almost like what would serve as like a direct sequel to the original animated Hobbit movie, if I'm being honest. Um,
Okay.
and
If you look at it like that.
yeah, no, but that doesn't justify its issues for sure. I haven't
No.
gotten
No,
far
no,
in. I
definitely
haven't
not.
gotten far enough in to really do much yet. But I've played like 40 minutes of it earlier today. But what I can tell you is that it's not. The gameplay isn't terrible, but it's so generic. It's like extremely paint by numbers. You've got like the Uncharted climbing, but it's a lot more stiff. You've got the Assassin's Creed stealth, but it's a lot more. I don't know. It's very. It's hard to explain, but the game is basically stealth based, you know, because Gollum can't fight for shit. So you can, if you sneak up on orcs without helmets, you can throttle them to death. That's literally what it's called. He just like chokes them out, you know. But the ones with helmets, you gotta like throw rocks to distract them and shit, you know. And if you're lucky, Shelob will be around and you can like lure them into her webs and have her eat them, you know.
Okay.
Um, so conceptually, on paper, this game should have worked because what they tried to do, there's potential in there. You can see it. You can see the potential, but it's the execution that they flopped. It's the how, not
Yeah.
the what, but the how that they fucked up.
Yeah.
At least from what I've seen so far. Will it get better? I don't know. GameSpot gave it a 2 out of 10, so I don't think so. um
Jesus Christ.
yeah, which to me, from what I've seen so far, that seems a little harsh, but I also feel like this is the kind of game that I'm gonna be
God
like, I feel
damn.
like the more I'm being a little generous right now, but I feel like the more I play it, the more I'm gonna hate it. So I'm just waiting to see. It's gonna be his voice that irks me the most. It's gonna be every time he talks, it just pisses me off.
Yeah.
And they do have a cool mechanic though, where because of the Gollum Smeagol thing, that like sometimes you have to make a choice as either Smeagol or Gollum. Like it'll give you an A or B, and then in order to make that choice, like if you want to make a Smeagol choice, you have to like win an argument with Gollum inside your own head. You have to like make the right dialogue options. Yeah, you have to like you're like given dialogue options, and you have to convince Gollum as Smeagol to go along with your more pacifist way of doing things, as Gollum is usually going to go for a more aggressive. Like a good example is early on, you're chasing a beetle, and like you know, Gollum is convinced that it's like a spy for Sauron, and he's like, "No, we gotta smash it." And Smeagol's like, "No, it's a nice beetle. You know, it doesn't mean us no harm." And you have to like decide which way. And I'm like, "Why are we wasting time on this shit?" I guess it's just to show off the mechanic, but who the fuck cares? It's a beetle. It's just, I mean, when he was chasing the bird, that made more sense, but then they just do the same thing again. I don't understand why. Um, so needless to say, I'm not very impressed with it so far. I'm giving it a small bit of leeway because there is potential there. But I knew going into it that it was going to be bad because it's been getting shit on by every reviewer out there. So, um, and
Yeah.
also the game looks
I was
nothing like
actually
they
excited
promised
to play
us.
that game too.
I don't. You don't like
I was
stealth
actually
games,
excited to play it
so I
too.
don't know. This is like extremely stealth based.
Is it?
I mean, there's a part where you're following orcs and you have to stay close to them, but also far away enough that you don't get caught. It's very classic Assassin's Creed in that style. And there's like grass that you have to like tall grass you have to crawl around in while you're following them to not
Oh,
be seen.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
that kind of
Right.
thing. And like I said, you can sneak up behind them
Ugh.
and choke them out at certain key moments. But like this is all I played the
Okay.
tutorial, and I'm already like oh, this game isn't good. So I don't know. We'll see. But I doubt it. I don't
Rip off the
I
band-aid.
just this is like it's one of those like car wreck scenarios where like I I want to keep going because I want to see just how bad it gets. Like I need to
Yeah.
see if it gets any worse or better. I don't think it'll get better, but I have to see how much of a train wreck it actually becomes. I'm morbidly curious. So I'm probably going to finish it because I
Right.
doubt it's probably like an 8-hour game. So,
Probably.
but yeah, whatever. I don't
Let's see.
recommend right now. That's a not recommend. That's a negative recommend. Everyone. Yeah. An unrecommend. I unrecommend it.
An
I don't
unrecommend.
know.
I talked about it before on a previous episode. I've talked about it actually on multiple previous episodes because I've been excited about this. And it finally dropped today. Season 4, Part 2 of Manifest. I've watched a couple of the episodes so far, and it's already an emotional roller coaster. I was sitting here like trying to hold my shit together, trying not to cry, but Netflix is good at tugging at your emotions. It's the fun. This is the series. This is the series finale, bro. Like this is gonna get intense.
I'm sorry. I have to interject. You give Netflix way too much credit that they don't deserve. The show, yes. Netflix, no. Netflix likes to tug at your wallet is what they like to tug at. They
Yeah,
they are
that
look
you're not
look
wrong.
they may have saved the show, and I'm glad they did. And they do put out some bangers like Stranger Things. That being said, though, it is like the most of what you find on Netflix is a bunch of nonsense these days. They're being held up by like four really good shows at this point, and that's it. And like when there's something on it I don't want to watch, I don't even pay for it anymore. If it's I pay for it when there's something I want to watch, and then when there's not, I turn it back off. It's not worth the money.
I keep it because I keep it because of my daughter. Whenever I have her, I know there's a couple of shows on there that she likes to
Oh,
watch.
and that's completely fair. But also,
That and I
the
know I
real
always have
the
access to the library that I have access to.
that's true. But the real credit for that show goes to the writers.
Yes, that. Yes.
Yes.
No,
But
this
yeah,
one I can already tell. I'm only 2 episodes in, two and a half actually, and I can already tell that this is going to be. Like I said, it's going to be intense. It is. I can definitely tell that there was a lot put into this because Netflix took a chance with this show. They took a chance, and the original writers for the show are the ones that worked on this final season. And what they wanted to do for the manifestors, with the basically what the fan base is called, what they wanted to do for the manifestors is give them a proper ending, considering it was the show was canceled by NBC. And Netflix gave them that opportunity to do so. Netflix took a huge chance with this, and it, the fan base followed. I'm glad that Netflix picked this up because they from what I've watched so far, even from season 4 part 1, I can tell the difference between the NBC productions and the Netflix productions. You can definitely tell the difference. It gets a little grittier in season 4. They get away with a little more than what they were able to on NBC. They kind of did the same thing with Lucifer because Lucifer, the first three seasons were done by Fox, and then the final three seasons were done by Netflix when they picked it up. You can definitely tell the difference between the two.
Okay. So I'm gonna say that's
There's
a high recommend from you for that show.
Yes, very, very highly, highly recommend it. And it
Okay.
did, and I called it. It did come out on the date that I predicted, June 2nd, 2023. And June
Uh,
2nd is actually a very significant. No, June 3rd. Wait, no, June 2nd. It's at the time of recording this. It is already Saturday. No, it was June 2nd. June
Saturday
2nd
morning.
is a very significant. Yeah. It is a it came out on the date that I predicted, and then that date is very significant in the show. And I'm not going to say anything about the significance of it because it is technically considered a spoiler.
Yeah. We're not. We don't do spoilers around here. We dance around it when we do our synopses and shit. Unless we're doing a movie review, then we do spoilers
Yes.
or
Yes.
game review or whatever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have.
What you got?
Uh, I also have another thing. um. Yeah, I can English. So I recently finished Jedi Survivor. Um. And as much as people were right about the graphical issues it had on performance mode,
Mm-hmm.
there was screen tearing and blurry textures and frame drops. It did get a little bit better later in the game, and they patched it a couple times. So, but story wise and gameplay wise, this game is miles above its
Mm-hmm.
predecessor. I
Okay.
There is a bit. I don't want to say it's a.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Guten Tag.
Thank you.
I don't want to say it's a slow burn because it's not. But what I will say is that you do spend a long time on one particular planet, depending on how much side content you choose to do. But it makes sense because this
Mm-hmm.
planet is basically your base. There's like a saloon, and like you can recruit people, and they go to the saloon, and when you talk to them, they give you like extra missions. It's got like a huge RPG thing going for it. But at its core, much like the first game, the combat is Soulsborne.
Uh-huh.
The combat is Soulsborne. The traversal is Uncharted. Uh, well, the climbing is Uncharted, but the traversal in is Metroidvania ish. But it's not a side scroller. It's the Metroidvania concept of having to backtrack a lot after you get different abilities in order to get to things you couldn't before. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
that's kind
Who's
of
the
what I mean by
developer
that.
behind this one? I forget.
Respawn Entertainment. They also made the Titanfall 2. Um, and you can tell because
Okay.
the wall running mechanic from Titanfall 2 in the first game also is back in this one as well. There are some
Nice.
very 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 exciting and moments that I would call a visual spectacle where you are just doing all kinds of things. So this isn't technically a spoiler because like you get abilities in video games. You're going to go through the game seeing green barriers at some point and you're going to be like, I wonder how I get past those." Obviously, you're going to get some kind of ability to deal with it later. So you get an ability to go through green barriers later. And there's one particular boss battle where you spend an assload of time in the air, wall running from wall to wall, dashing through green barriers, flying through vortexes. It is one of the coolest things I've seen in a while. It is
Nice.
amazing. And the game itself, near the end, the places that they go with the story. Oh, I did not see it coming, man. Some of it took me a lot. There were some very interesting situations. Um,
I bet.
the places it goes with the story near the end are mind-blowing is the best way to put it. Like
Yeah,
that's the only way I can say it without spoiling anything. It's just ah, if you liked the end of the first game, you're going to love the end of this one. I can tell
fair
you that
enough.
much. Yes, absolutely. Yes. So, yeah, Jedi Survivor is a high recommend from me, but you absolutely positively must have played and finished Fallen Order to really appreciate it. There is a recap that you can watch from the main menu at the beginning, but it does no justice to having actually played the game. Um,
That's understandable, and rightfully so.
and if you're not a fan of the challenge that Soulsbornian combat tends to bring, do not worry. You can turn the game down. It has like 4 or 5 difficulty modes, and the very, very bottom one is, or like the easiest one is story mode that basically just makes you like one shot everything and take no damage. You're basically invincible
Yeah.
outside of boss battles. Like, because I'll be honest, I played it on easy, like the next one up from that, like the easiest, and I was doing good for a
Uh huh.
while, but like about 3/4 into the game, I started struggling, and I had to turn it down to story mode.
I bet.
Yeah, it was some of those fights were a little unforgiving. It was actually a secret boss that got me, and I didn't realize it was. But
Oh shit.
if you've ever seen Return of the Jedi, you'll appreciate this one. So, um,
Okay.
I mean, I'd hope people have seen Return of the Jedi if they're playing this game,
Bruh.
but
Bruh.
um,
Yeah, no,
but yeah,
that's a staple.
that's a high recommend from me. What's the second thing on your list?
Absolutely. Second thing on my list for uh Media Corner. So basically, I recently started watching Game of Thrones with a friend of mine because she likes to watch things with people that they've never watched before just to see their reactions.
Relatable.
and, and I mean, she's watched the entirety of this show, Game of Thrones. Yeah, Game of Thrones. I'm intrigued. Okay, there's a lot of shit that happened in the first season, and I just made it to season 2 last night, maybe the night before. I forget.
Now, this I am
But
gonna say a mild spoiler because it's past the statute of limitations, but Sean Bean doesn't
yeah,
survive anything he's in.
bro, I was pissed when they killed Eddard Stark the way they did. The way I wanted to slit Joffrey's throat myself.
Oh, Joffrey.
Like,
Oh yeah,
god
yeah,
damn,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Joffrey's a piece of. He's a spoiled little shit, and
Just
he's an
wait till the
abuse of power at its finest.
man. You haven't seen
Bro.
shit yet. Just wait. Just wait till the red wedding. Then you can start bitching.
Bro, I wanted to fucking, like, knock his teeth down his throat for forcing his uh, so-called girlfriend, who just so happened to be Eddard's daughter, basically forced her to look at her father's severed head.
Yeah, Joffrey is a little pissant, but don't worry. Don't worry.
Bro,
Don't
like,
worry. You'll
ooh,
I think you'll be happy with something.
ooh.
I think you'll be very happy with some things that happen later. So, but then I'm gonna warn you now. I know
Joffrey gets his just desserts, maybe?
maybe, but what I am gonna tell you
Oh, I
is
hope.
that
I fucking hope so.
the show has a terrible habit of killing off people that don't deserve it, but also killing people that do. So there's that. um,
Fair enough.
but what I am gonna tell you is that you're probably going to be disappointed in the 8th season. Maybe you won't, because it seems like you sometimes seem to enjoy a lot of the things that everyone else hated. So, but people were very not happy with season 8 and just how they ended the show in general. There's one episode in there that's like really, really dark, and it's impossible to see what the fuck's going on. And there's another episode where you can straight up see a Starbucks cup sitting in the frame because they forgot to cut it out. Yeah, they were kind of lazy
That's
with that
funny.
one. It's because they got past the part where the books were because George R. R. Martin has taken very, very long time to write book. And Um, I, I stumbled over my words, so I decided to just go with it. You know what I mean? But anyways, yeah, that's what it was. It was intentional. I promise. Um, I don't know,
Oh no,
but
I'm laughing.
but
Oh, that was
basically,
great.
after they didn't have source material from the books to work off anymore, they just started winging it from there, and they did not do a very good job of it. Once,
Fair enough.
at least from what I hear from like literally everyone, you know what I mean. There might be a few, there
Right.
might be a few staunch defenders of season 8, and I personally like. I'm just going off of what I've heard from extremely reliable sources. Dylan and Ryan. Um, well,
Okay.
not only them, but also like a lot of podcasts I listened to and all that. They were very like, and CinemaSins ate that shit up. They did all of season 8 over on TV Sins. They were
I
like, "Ooh, this one's ripe.
bet they
This
did.
one's ripe for the pickin'." Cracks knuckles. Typity type on the keyboard. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna warn you now. Temper your expectations going into season 8 because from what I hear, anyways, it's the worst season of the whole show, but also the last one. But also, there's a bunch of spin-off shows coming out. There's like a prequel like House of Dragon or whatever, you know. Uh,
House of Dragon has already wrapped its first season, and I think they're going to be having a spin-off series called Snow after Jon Snow.
okay, yeah, you know nothing, Jon Snow. You know the whole South Park Black Friday trilogy was a parody of Game of Thrones.
Yes, oh yes, I'm very well aware of that, and I picked up on it
The
too.
the security guards at the
The
mall were
game.
supposed to be the Night Watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
The
the
fucking
Red
game.
Robin wedding is a parody of the Red Wedding, but you're not there yet, and you're gonna fucking shit
No.
yourself when you get there. I'm telling you. And even that isn't the worst of it. You're gonna see a lot of familiar people like, oh, is that Bella Ramsey? Is that Jason Momoa? Don't get attached to anyone in this show. I'm, you know,
Jason Momoa's already dead.
yeah. See what I mean? Don't get
He
attached.
died in the first season.
Don't get attached to
At the very end of the first
anybody.
season.
Don't get attached to a single
Bro,
goddamn
like,
soul. There is absolutely. This is one of those shows where there's absolutely no guarantee that anyone will make it to the end. It's basically medieval Walking Dead. Like,
okay, so okay, so there is one character that I am kind of attached to, and I'm probably gonna end up like hating myself for getting attached so quickly, and that's the fucking imp, fucking um Peter Peter Dinklage's character.
oh yeah, I forgot he was in that. I don't know how I
Yeah,
forgot that, but I did forget. I
yeah. How the fuck did you forget that?
well, you know what though, Peter
He's
Dink.
one of the Lannisters, bro.
That's right. That's right. Um, isn't he Tyrion?
Tyrion, yes.
That's right, Tyrion Lannister. I forget. I forget. Honestly, I genuinely don't know if he dies or not. I know a lot of things from that
I
show
really hope he doesn't.
secondhand because I never actually watched it, but I know everything that happens for the most part because internet. you know, I'm surprised you didn't have it all spoiled for you. I didn't even choose to see it; it just happened. You know, but then I did get curious and I went on YouTube and I watched like certain scenes, like the Red Wedding and shit, and I did a little research because I played the Telltale Game of Thrones game, which has a little side
Bro.
story that takes place during the Red Wedding, and I was curious. So,
Right. Yeah, the one part that I had to cover my eyes for in Game of Thrones was when Joffrey had ordered the his henchmen or guards or whatever to go and kill his father's bastard children.
oh, yep, fair, yep, right,
Given my personal experiences, I'll just put it at that.
right, which is
It
completely
just hit a little too
understandable.
close.
And
Just hit a little too close to home.
some things are, difficult in that kind of way. I there are some people who they have issue with that with like cats and dogs in movies, bad things happening to them.
Yeah.
So there are websites dedicated to, telling you whether or not that happens in something before you watch it
Mhm.
so that you can know ahead of time.
DoesTheDogDie.com.
Yes. Yep. Um okay.
I have
Well,
it bookmarked.
well, I can tell you about a movie where a dog doesn't die there because as was said in the movie, we don't have no dog. Um and if you know, you know, and if you don't, you need to watch it. It's Pearl. Now in the last episode, at least the last numbered episode that we recorded, I talked about X, um the Ty West directed grindhouse style horror movie about a group of people filming an adult film and the old couple that owns the farm not taking well to it and going on a murder spree. That movie
that.
was very grindhousey. So Pearl is a prequel that took place in like 1975. Pearl is a prequel that takes place in 1918, and it stars once again Mia Goth, who she plays one of the adult film stars in the original named Maxine, but she also plays Pearl, the old lady that's one of the killers. She plays two characters in that movie, and they use a lot of prosthetics to make her look old. And there's a lot of scenes where Maxine and Pearl are in the same scene, so they're both just Mia Goth, um, talking to herself, Seth MacFarlane style. It's crazy how
There
they
you go.
snipped it together. I had no idea until I heard it on another podcast later that Mia Goth also played the old lady Pearl in that movie. I didn't know she was pulling double duty in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. She pulled an Eddie Murphy.
so, um, Jesus Christ.
Straight nutty professor that shit.
Oh my god. Um, wow, you really threw me off there. Okay, so Pearl is obviously about Pearl, but when she was younger, before she was an old lady, but she was still killing people. This girl was always crazy. But instead of being grindhousey, Pearl has more of an early Technicolor film feel to it. Think Wizard of Oz, like that, you know?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's very like Sound of Music, very kind of like tra la la, and very vibrant colors with a sort of like a kind of like Vaseline smear over the camera lens. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that. Everything is really vibrant and kind of smoothed, and it's funny because when you think of Wizard of Oz, and I'll say quick shout out to the Dead Meat podcast. They talk about horror movies, and when they talked about Pearl, it's a they live in Hollywood. It's a husband and wife, and they both went to film school, so they have a lot of thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
these things. They said they saw a lot of parallels between Pearl and Wizard of Oz, and the more I thought about it and listened to them, the more I agree. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of stand-ins here, with Pearl herself being a
Okay.
perfect stand-in for Dorothy. I can't really get into all the parallels without spoilers, but I will say you see the early stages of this character's psychosis before they become a full-blown serial killer in what is technically the sequel later on. But a lot of things that happen in X make a lot more sense when you've seen Pearl. It fills in some of those
Yeah.
gaps. But you should definitely watch X first because even though Pearl is a prequel, the context from X makes it more enjoyable. And I think they actually filmed both these
Okay.
movies back to back. That's why they
It would
put them
make
out so
sense.
quickly. Yeah, there's a third movie called Maxine, also starring Mia Goth, that's gonna round out the whole trilogy. Um, so, but yeah, I highly recommend Pearl because I like it more than X, if I'm being honest. But it's got such an interesting vibe to it. And don't let the weird Technicolor vibe fool you because it still gets violent, and bloody, but in a very it's weird to say, but it's still really colorful. Um it's not gritty and grindhousey like X is. It's a completely different vibe. Um that might be part of why I liked it more, you know. It also, which, you know, this is just a personal thing for me, even though sex was still a part of it, it wasn't as huge of a part of it. It was more focusing on her descent into madness more than anything, you know. I will say, without spoiling anything, there is one part near the end of this movie where she has like a 6 minute monologue where she kind of like comes to terms with her own insanity, and it might be some of the best like acting I've seen in a while. And it looks like they did it all in one take too. So props to Mia Goth for that, because a 6 minute monologue is a hard thing to memorize, you know.
Uh huh.
So that's just really good acting. So yeah, if you like if you like what I would call high art horror movies, like art house horror, definitely watch X
Hmm.
and Pearl.
Okay.
All right, you got a third thing?
Yeah, actually, this is actually this as of this recording, this information was dropped today on WWE Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. Now, they unified the WWE title and the Universal title back at WrestleMania last year when Roman Reigns defeated Brock Lesnar in a winner takes all match, unifying the title. They didn't unify it completely until today on SmackDown. So for the longest time, Roman Reigns has been carrying around the WWE Championship title belt and the Universal title. Now that they have it unified, it is now the new undisputed WWE Universal Championship. And it hits different. It looks amazing. It looks right. I'm excited to see whoever takes this belt off of this man because as of today, he has reached 1,000 days as the undisputed Universal Heavyweight Champion.
Oh wow.
This man has been undefeated for 3 years and counting. The last time he was pinned in a 1-2-3 was December of 2019. He's been undefeated ever since. But I cannot wait to see who steps up and finally takes this title from this man because his title reign it's getting a bit old. Every fucking city he goes to, whenever he comes out to the ring, the first thing he says is the name of the city that he's in, and then follows that by acknowledge me. And I'm like, bro, this gimmick is getting old. And someone just needs to dethrone your ass because you are definitely not the tribal chief. You are not the head of the table. You are living in Dwayne Johnson's shadow, my friend. Yes, you are living in your cousin's shadow, and I cannot wait for the day that The Rock comes back to the WWE to face Roman Reigns in a match at some point because that match has been teased for many, many months, if not for the last couple of years. I can't fucking wait to see when The Rock finally comes back to beat his cousin's ass, to set his ass straight.
I'm guessing that'll
I
be a
can't wait.
one-time thing it's
Yeah,
from what
obviously,
I
it's
understand, he
he's
retired from wrestling to pursue acting.
he did, but he has made appearances here and there, WWE will always be home, and he's even said that in many interviews. WWE will always be his home. That's
Oh,
where he got his start.
I see. So that's why him and Vin Diesel got into it, because his family was the wrestling people, not the cast of Fast and Furious. Vin
Right.
Diesel's like, no, you only get one. You gotta choose. It's us or them. The Rock left those movies after the eighth one. He's not in 9 or 10. Well, he's in a something. He's coming back. He's teased to come back in 10, but it's so I just it's there isn't supposed to be more. It's so insulting. It's and also missed opportunity to call this movie Fast 10 Your Seatbelts. Literally everyone is saying that. I didn't make that shit up. It's a dumb pun. Why Roman numerals now? Why Fast X? Because X looks cool? It makes no sense. And the other part is in the
Goddamn.
in the ninth movie. In the ninth movie, they fucking Tarzan swing a suspension bridge, and then Ludacris and Tyrese Gibson go to space. They go to fucking space. I'm frothing
It's not
at
about
the
races
mouth.
anymore.
That movie
It's
legit.
not about cars anymore.
I know, and that there is something about the existence of the ninth movie and the bullshit that it does that legitimately angers me. I'm not genuinely too angered by the existence of the movies, but that one and Don't Breathe 2 are both movies that make me actually mad that they exist. And otherwise I don't care. Taste is subjective, but those movies are insulting. And then the 10th one, from what I mean, dude, they play Rocket League with a bomb, and there's like literally everyone from every other movie is in this one. It's just a whole like smorgasbord of cameos. It's whatever. I don't care.
Bro. I
Oh my
yeah, I
God.
agree. I'd have to say that they need to put a stop to it because these are going way too overboard. Everything they just keep upping the ante with each movie.
I'm gonna bring Brian back and have his brother play him. Just stop. Just stop.
Right.
Oh. And now, on to this episode's topic.
The diamond in the rough.
All right, everyone, welcome to this episode's topic of discussion. This episode, the topic is hidden gems, games, movies, TV shows, and otherwise, that are things that we enjoyed, but we think they haven't gotten enough attention, or the attention that they rightfully deserve. And so we're going to tell you about them. These are things that there's a very good chance you've probably never heard of. So, Nick, why don't you start us off with a hidden gem?
This one is a video game, and I've talked about it on the show many a times. This is going to be an ongoing thing. Probably won't be the last time I bring it up, but I don't know if it would be considered a hidden gem. But to me, I think it is, and it was one. It was a game that I absolutely loved when I was a kid on Sega Genesis. Booger Man. It's just it fits my humor. I am easily amused, and in this game, you going through the sewers, fighting all these sewer monsters, and the way you defend yourself is by flinging boogers, letting out noxious burps, or some really raunchy farts. And as a whole, it's a piece of art. And if I ever got the chance to play it again, I would in a fucking heartbeat. Because this was one of my favorite games that I would play for hours on end when I was a kid on my Sega Genesis. I loved it.
Whenever you talk about this game, for some reason, all I can picture is Earthworm Jim.
You're right. So his suit was okay. So the story doesn't. It's not necessarily a story, but the backstory for Booger Man. He was a janitor, and then he came across. I forget how it happened, but it was like a toilet in the bathroom that he was cleaning, and this toilet led to a different dimension in the sewers. And when he went to go plunge it, it sucked him in, and it put him through this portal. Bro, this game is fucking insane.
No, I just looked up the game on Google, right? And the artwork has me cracking up because Boogerman himself looks like a Hanna-Barbera character.
Yeah.
No, he seriously looks like a Flintstones character turned into a superhero. But also, if you read the subtitle on the game, the full title of the game isn't just Boogerman, it's Boogerman, a pick and flick adventure. What the
Yes.
fuck?
Yes, bro. This is like one of my all-time favorite childhood memories. This was one of my favorite games, and it still is to this day. And honestly, it don't matter what. It does not matter how good a game is. This game will always be my number one.
All right, well, we're talking about hidden gems, and you're over here digging for gold. Makes sense.
Bro,
I'm sorry, I
you
couldn't
ain't
help
even,
myself.
you ain't even lying. Oh man.
But okay. Well, I have a game as well as one of my first things. It's an indie game that's more recent. It actually came out this year. It's free for PlayStation Plus Extra members, and it's spelled Tchia, but pronounced Chia. The T is silent, like nuclear.
Chia.
So this game is basically, it's what I would call if Pixar made a video game, right? At least that's the way it seems from a story perspective and from a world building perspective. It feels very Pixar-y, even down to the narrative a little bit. So the game takes place in New Caledonia, and it is very faithful to that area in terms of culture and scenery and stuff like that. And it's because the developers went to New Caledonia and did their research. So major props, major respect to them for that, because if you're going to make a game that takes place in another country, then you should probably go out of your way to make sure that you're getting it accurate. But the story follows this girl named Chia, who her father is like kidnapped by an evil wizard or something, and she gets so mad that she turns into a knife and chases after him, but misses. And anyways, long story short, she basically finds out that she has this spirit jumping power where she has the ability to jump into any object or animal that she desires and temporarily control them for a while. Do you want to play as a deer? You can. Do you want to play as a bucket? You can. Do you want to play as a bird? You can. Want to play as a rock? You definitely can. All of these things are possible in Chia. And each of the things that you control, each have their own unique individual abilities. So like if you're controlling a dog or a boar, for example, you can dig around in the earth for treasure and stuff. If you're controlling a deer, you can sprint. If you're controlling a bird, you can fly, which is cool. But also your special ability is to poop. Yes, just press R2 and you can poop while flying. Because why not? The game has a lot of similarities between two popular Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Wind Waker. So I would say fans of either of those games would get a lot out of this. And it also
Uh-huh.
reminds me a lot of the Disney movie Moana in some ways. The game is also very open world. After the first, maybe hour or so of tutorial, it basically just throws you out into the open world and says, okay, good luck, you know, and it's, you got to use the map and the compass to
Okay.
kind of figure out where you're going. So it's not super handholdy on direction, but where it is, um, it does have a lot of accessibility options. One of which is the ability to completely straight up skip entire gameplay sections if you find them to be too difficult for you, um, or boring.
Nice.
Like if there's a part of the game you're just not enjoying, you're like, man, I don't like what I'm doing right now. I just want to move on to the next cutscene. You can do that. Just pause the game and say skip gameplay segment, and it'll take you straight to the next cutscene. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There are even sometimes moments where you're sitting around a campfire and there's like a part of the story where someone's playing an instrument and you play along or you're playing for them or whatever, and it's like a rhythm game QTE section. But if you don't like that, you can just hit a button to make her autoplay the instrument and you can just sit back and enjoy it. So the game is basically it's catered to make sure that no matter who you are, that you can find some enjoyment out of it, because any parts of it that you don't like, you can just straight up skip and stick with the parts you do like. Speaking of which, that's another Zelda comparison, is the fact that after you get your instrument, you can kind of play it to do different things. Like there's a tune you can play that changes the time of day from day to night, and that feels a lot like Ocarina of Time as far as Zelda games. So Chia very clearly took a lot of inspiration from a lot of Zelda games. And of course, everyone in the game speaks their native tongue. Again, this game takes place in New Caledonia, which I think that's great. I think if you're going to make a game or something that takes place in another country or culture, you should go out of your way to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be as accurate and respectful to the source material as possible, in my opinion. Um, and I know there are some people out
Yeah.
there that's like, I don't want to play no games with no goddamn foreigners in them. I'm a red-blooded American. I only play games with white people in them. Well, first of all, that's racist. And secondly, get the fuck over yourself. It's free on PlayStation Plus Extra. So what's the worst that could happen? You don't like it and you end up deleting it? Ooh, big deal. You know. No, but seriously. So what I'm about to say here, I have to dance around very carefully because I don't want anyone to take it wrong. But I understand that not everyone has the time for everything, so we're not always going to be able to get to everything. We physically can't give everything a fair chance because time is an issue, There are definitely some movies I'll probably never see, some games I'll probably never play, unfortunately, because, if I had all the time in the world, I would. But the thing is, it's not about whether or not you can get to all these things. What matters is that you're not prejudging something without having actually tried it. So not being able to get to something and kind of writing it off like, it's not a priority, I just don't have the time to get to it. That's fine. That's one thing. But if you are writing a game off or a movie off for a completely arbitrary reason that you have decided in your mind that it's bad before you've even played or watched it, then that's a problem. I can understand an argument for certain things, like Don't Breathe 2 is a movie a lot of people don't want to watch because it glorifies a sexual offender. Um, it tries to make a bad guy a good guy, and it doesn't work. And I don't mean like sympathetic villain, I mean like bad. Like, this is a very bad man. He did something so bad I can't say the word on YouTube, and the second movie wants to make him a hero. So if you want to prejudge a movie like that, that's fine, because that's problematic. But like, if we're prejudging something that takes place in another country specifically because it takes place in another country, that's not okay. In fact, thinking that way is problematic, if you ask me. You know, so like I said, there are some things where it's justified, and there are some things where it's not, I think. And I do think overall, though, as because art is subjective, we can't give educated opinions on things unless we've actually experienced them, I guess is the best way to put it. So you can have an opinion on something that you've never watched or played, but until you've watched or played it, you have to accept the fact that your opinion is coming from a place of ignorance. And that's not an insult. It's just a definition. It's just the truth. But if you take the time to actually watch or play something and you don't enjoy it, that's fine, but it's more justifiable in that case because you actually took the time to watch or play it, and therefore your opinion is coming from a place of experience, perspective, and education. And it holds more water than the opinion of someone who doesn't have that experience or perspective, if that makes any sense. Anyways, not trying to get on a soapbox here or anything. It's just, you know how I am about art. It's, I feel like I just wanted to make it very clear. I'm not saying people have to try everything. I'm not saying, no, you need to try this. Don't just write it off before you try it. No. I feel like that gets easily misinterpreted a lot. No, I'm not saying you have to try everything. God, no, that's not possible. What I am saying, though, is don't prejudge things that you haven't tried. You can write them off because you don't have the time or whatever. And if you want to write something off because it's problematic, you know, like a lot of people boycotted Hogwarts Legacy because they didn't want to give J.K. Rowling any royalties because she is transphobic, and the goblins in her stories are supposed to be making fun of Jewish people. So yeah, she's problematic. So I can understand that. But something that's completely innocent, like Chia, for example, there's absolutely no reason to prejudge a game like that without actually trying it. The only if you watch a trailer and the gameplay doesn't look appealing to you and you want to write it off as not a priority, that's fine. But don't judge it. Don't judge it without actually having played it. That's the stuff that drives me nuts, is when people try to have a solid formulaic opinion, when people basically try to review something they haven't actually experienced. You can't formulate a proper review of something you haven't actually gone hands-on with, you know. But anyways, like I said, kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah, Chia, amazing little indie game, very, very beautiful. The music is great. The graphics are minimal, but they work for this environment, for this world. There's a little bit of ragdoll physics in there. Like when I spirit jumped into a deer at one point, I tripped over a rock running down a hill, and then my legs kind of tumbled under me, and I just kind of flopped around like Goat Simulator, which was kind of funny to see. So this is a game that they tried very hard to make accessible to everybody, all ages, you know, all gameplay types. You know, there's a little something for everyone in there. So I feel like since it's free on PlayStation Plus Extra, if you have it, give it a try. At least try it, you know? Like, be a good sport, be open-minded, and give it a shot, because it is one hell of a amazing, beautiful game. And just to be clear, I'm talking to everybody here. I'm not talking directly to my co-host. I'm talking to you, the audience. Play Chia, goddammit. It is definitely a top 10 contender this year. Oh, but anyways, what's another hidden gem for you, Nick?
So okay, so yeah, yeah, my cousin is actually a local celebrity ish. Um, yeah, I'd say he's a local celebrity. He is a total of now three bands. I haven't heard any of the music from his new band Aperture, but his other bands, Born into Exile and Faith in Vain. Now I know Ryan knows about these bands because the first show I went to for Faith in Vain, Ryan's old band, A Martyr's Fall, was there. So it's if you're not a Rockford local or if you're not a Rockford native, chances are you probably haven't heard of these bands. But within the Rockford music scene, my, at least from what I've gathered, my Born into Exile and Faith in Vain are two of the most popular metal bands here in Rockford, and they are both led by my cousin.
So I don't really have hidden gems in terms of bands. Like I don't have a specific band I consider a hidden gem. It's more like a niche musical genre for me. It's songs about and inspired by video games, not songs from video game soundtracks, which I do think don't get the attention they deserve, but that's more underrated than hidden gem. But like there are just like certain groups, like the Stupendium, a British guy who is one of the best lyricists I've ever heard. Like the way he writes his lyrics is just so his vocabulary is expansive is the best way to put it. He's really good at what he does, and all of his songs are about different video games like The Outer Worlds, Little Nightmares 2. He collaborates with Dan Bull a lot. But another genre in that vein of music based on video games is there's, how a lot of times you'll go on YouTube and you'll see, lo-fi chill beats to study and relax to or whatever kind of thing. Well, there are video game versions of that. Basically lo-fi hip-hop remixes of different video game music, and some of the most popular ones, or some of the best ones I should say, are done by artists that are signed by a label called Game Chops. They have a whole YouTube channel where they have a live stream going 24/7 where they play this music from their different artists. It's like basically like a radio station that's commercial free, and it's all just lo-fi hip hop and like chiptune 8-bit remixes of video game music and stuff. And it's really cool. They actually did an album recently that is actually popular songs from, like some newer, some older, but a bunch of popular songs remixed to sound like background music to old Sonic the Hedgehog Sega Genesis games. It was really, really cool.
My it's a remake. I should have actually brought this up on the last episode that we did because it was considering it was remakes, reboots, and remasters. This is a remake of a 1971 film, Willard. Willard, and the remake was made in 2003. This movie stars Crispin Glover, and he befriends a rat, and then a shit ton of other rats. And but no, he befriends a shit ton of rats, and then he uses those rats. Those rats become loyal to him, and then he uses those rats to basically eliminate anybody who has wronged Willard. These rats basically they eat his offenders alive, and it's very disturbing, a very dark film, but I enjoy that.
Okay, well, the next hidden gem for me is a movie from my childhood, an animated movie, very short one. I think I first discovered it on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theaters that they would play on the weekends, where they'd play full animated movies with commercials. But also, I owned a VHS copy of this, I think, at some point as well. Anyways, it's a movie called Cats Don't Dance.
Bro, you ain't lying. That movie was my shit. I had it on VHS, bro.
Yeah, so it's about this orange cat, tomcat named Danny. And to be clear, in this movie, animals and humans coexist in a like animals are like humans in this world. They're anthropomorphic. They walk and talk and they do normal human stuff, and they coexist along regular humans. So, um, basically, this cat named Danny, who lives in a rural area in Indiana, I think it is. He's traveling to Hollywood because he has dreams of making it big. You know, he wants to be a dancer. He wants to be an actor. And once he gets there, he finds out that animals don't really make it big in Hollywood. They're only good enough for bit parts and low class jobs and stuff like that. But ever the optimist, Danny is not going to let him and his friends, his new friends, down, and he finds a way. He finds a way for them to make it. It's a very paint by numbers animated kids movie, but I have a lot of nostalgia for it because I watched it a lot as a kid. The reason I think it's a hidden gem, though, is because of the music. I think the songs in this movie are absolutely stellar, and the girl, the main villain, Darla Dimple, she's actually played by two different young actresses. One of them doing her regular voice and one doing her singing voice. And the one who did her singing voice was 12 years old. And there's one song where she holds a note for like a minute straight. It's insane. So, but yeah. Anyways, Cats Don't Dance is actually free on YouTube. You can watch an official licensed copy on YouTube for free, because you know how YouTube has movies and TV shows that you can rent or buy, and if you connect it to your Vudu account or whatever, all of your library is there too. Well, Cats Don't Dance is like it's an official copy of the movie. Some movies on YouTube are free, and they're like official copies, not just pirated ones that somebody uploaded, but like from the companies themselves. And this is one of them. So if you're curious, look up Cats Don't Dance on YouTube, and it's only an hour and 14 minutes long. So I'd definitely watch it. I'd put it up there with like Balto and the Iron Giant in terms of movies I watched when I was a kid. And I have a lot of nostalgia memory for. Balto was a really good one too, honestly. Speaking of that, based on a true story too. For some reason, I particularly, out of everything in that movie, the funny Russian goose sidekick is the thing I remember the most. I remember the part where he's like, "Now you listen here, this goose is no spring chicken." He's like, and then the snow falls on him, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm no spring penguin either." Anyways, yeah, cats don't dance, but they do run around a lot and meow.
Yeah, dude, that was one of my absolute favorites, along with like Troll in Central Park. Let's see, what else? Oh, The Pebble and the Penguin.
You know what else it kind of reminds me of is the Fievel movies. You remember those?
Hmm.
American Tail and Fievel Goes West.
Bro, when my dad when I was a kid and I was walking too slow, my dad would look at me and he goes, "Keep walking, Fievel." Yes, I love the American Tale, the Fievel Goes West movies. Yes, absolutely on my list. Love those. I love that shit. That holds a very special place in my childhood.
Also, Rockadoodle comes to mind. The one about the rooster who's basically Elvis, and it's got like the evil owl
Yeah,
with the big eyebrows.
I loved Rockadoodle. That movie was my shit. I had it on VHS. Bro, like you don't even know, like I mean but shit, man, that movie, it was something special.
Another one I'm thinking of is a horror movie, and this is one of those like underground after dark horror films, but it's called The Final, and it's like about a group of nerds that are tired of being bullied, so they trick all of their bullies into going to a party where they basically trap and torture them as revenge. It's it's like a horror version of Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, this one! I loved this movie.
But yeah, definitely some like Saw type shit, like cut
Mm-hmm.
off your girlfriend's finger with these garden shears, or we'll take a blowtorch to your eyeball, that kind of thing. Actually reminds me in a little ways of a horror movie called Would You Rather that kind of fell in that same vein of
Yeah.
horrible choices where nobody wins. And it actually takes me to another horror movie, and I would consider this one even more of a hidden gem, called Are You Scared? And this one is like so hard to find these days. Like, good luck if you can find it. Even if you sail the seven seas, you'll struggle to find a good copy of it. At least one that's being seeded. But it's called Are You Scared? And it's very Saw-like. A bunch of people think that they're going to some kind of like reality show competition thing. And when they get there, they find out that the reality show is a bit too real. The first red flag is that it takes place in a seedy warehouse. That probably would have been like the first, but like it's also supposed to be horror themed. So I guess they just kind of figure, oh, it's part of the aesthetic, like a haunted house. But nope, this shit's real. But it is very Saw-like in the sense that a lot of the characters, the challenges they have to face in this movie have something to do with their fears, with their paranoias, I distinctly remember one game slash trap slash challenge where these two siblings were on this chair, and there's a drill coming towards them, and like one of them basically has to choose to sacrifice themselves to save the other one. Like one of them has to die. It's really messed up.
Ooh, yeah, I think I saw that one too. Another one that's kind of similar, it's called Truth or Dare, and I think I saw it on Netflix. Truth or Dare was another really good one that's kind of similar to that. Based on those those like party games type shit. So this isn't necessarily a hidden gem, but it was a Disney Plus original film, and it's called Togo. And apparently Togo is also based on a true story, and it is basically the live action Balto. And it has Willem Dafoe in it. I have not watched it, so I would not be able to 100% confirm that, but that is what I have heard. I definitely plan on watching it. It's been out for a while now, but
So I actually just thought of another video game. It's a PS1 game, classic era PS1 game called Tomba. It's about this like pink-haired caveman guy who is like I don't know, pigs do something that piss him off, and it's basically a 2D side scroller where you're like jumping on the pigs and biting them in order to defeat them. And you're just like a pink-haired caveman dude in a loincloth just running around killing these evil pigs. And that's about all the more I actually remember about it, but I do remember it being really fun 2D side-scrolling platformer type game. The PS1 era had a lot of those. The PS1 era had a lot of 3D platformers, was when they started going with 3D, but there was still a few side-scrollers here and there, and that was one of them. Another one, although I would consider this more 2.5D, but another one was a game called Klonoa, The Door to Phantom Isle. I'm not sure if this one is so much a hidden gem because it was popular enough that it got a remaster collection recently. But I don't know a lot of people besides my sister who were actually aware of this game. So, but yeah, you're this little, like, dog creature thing, and a mysterious something or another crashes into your hometown, and you're going to investigate it. And you get a mysterious power from this ring that you find, and you can use this power to fight these little creatures that are invading your hometown. And there's like a big guy in a bird mask who's trying to kidnap a princess. And long story short, you go on an adventure. And it's got like an overworld map similar to Crash Bandicoot, where you like go to the different things and come back. And there's even like some areas that you have to you have to come back to after you've done something in another area before you can get to certain things. Like one area, things are blocked off by a waterfall, and you have to like basically turn it off in another level and then come back to that level, and then you can go that way. It's very interesting. It did like a sort of very light Metroidvania thing in that aspect, but overall it's just a regular 2D side-scrolling platformer game with a very interesting animation and aesthetic. But definitely a hidden gem in my book.
There's another game I had when I was a kid that I wanted to talk about briefly while you're trying to remember what game you were going to talk about. And this was just one I just kind of pulled out of my ass. Um, but Clay Fighters on the Sega Genesis. I don't know. I don't remember how popular it was, but I do know that that was one of my favorite. Like that was my first combat game. I never got to play Street Fighter because my mom wouldn't let me because it promoted violence. But so did Clay Fighter. It was a fighting game. It was a combat game, and I wasn't allowed to play it that often. I was allowed to play it in small doses. I was as a child I was fucking sheltered, like hardcore sheltered. Like I didn't get to enjoy a lot of the things that I enjoy now until later in life when I could make my own decisions. Like I wasn't even allowed to watch WWE because it objectified women back in the Attitude Era. My mom didn't want me exposed to that.
So before we wrap up here, I actually have some answers from listeners, friends, and whatnot that I want to read real quick. I just reached out to a few people to get their thoughts. Dylan, Funky Hurdles, said the Nicolas Cage movie Pig. He said he thinks it's his best performance. If you think Nick Cage is just goofy, it'll convert you to Nouveau Shamanic pretty quick. It's also a great story about success, food, and family that slowly unravels over time. I've heard good things about it, and Mandy, and the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I've heard good things about all these movies, so they're definitely on my list. I'm going to watch them eventually. Ryan, aka Rayquaza, or RMK Buried Alive, if you will, says Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists of the Roses for the PS2. It fell into this really weird place where it was technically a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, but didn't function the way any of the other ones ever have. It's more chess than traditional card game, but has card game elements in it too. Killer soundtrack, insanely fun gameplay loop, but got written off by non-Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans for being a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, and by Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans for not being a traditional game. I think I remember this too, but like very vaguely. Like it sounds familiar, but I don't know if I ever actually played it. I'd have to look it up. My sister also indirectly had an entry because I was talking to her about X and Pearl, and she mentioned another horror movie that Mia Goth is in called Infinity Pool. You can rent it for $6 on Amazon Prime, and apparently it was written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, who is the son of David Cronenberg, known for his body horror movies like The Fly and Scanners. Brandon does include body horror like his father, but it's not nearly to the same level. She doesn't really like body horror that much, so she wouldn't watch it or even recommend it if it was to that level. But she recommends this one, so I'm definitely going to check it out at some point. Now, Dylan's girlfriend Chaz also had an entry for this. She said Scott Pilgrim. It flopped in theaters, and it's one of her all-time favorite movies that she tries and introduces to everyone. Although I would say I feel like Scott Pilgrim is well known. At this point, it does have a cult following. I don't know if it's a hidden gem anymore, but it definitely was at one point. But I feel like that movie is, I mean, not super popular, but it definitely has a cult following now. Music-wise, she says the Hoysers, I think that's how you pronounce it, or the Hoosers. Anyways, they do a song called "Goodbye, Mr. A." They were like so big when their first album came out, but now no one talks about or listens to them. And their other albums are just as amazing. She says it's one of her all-time favorite bands. Game-wise, she feels like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is kind of a hidden gem. I would agree that it's underrated, for sure. It's definitely my favorite of the Zelda games. But she said the reason being is that the game is freaking amazing. It has some of the best music, best art, and everyone is like obsessed with all the other Zelda games, but she really likes this one. It's emo and you can be a wolf, so what's not to like about it? But it definitely doesn't get the love it deserves, which makes her sad, and me too. I agree with this. It needs a remake on the Switch. It really does. She also gave an audiobook recommendation, and because she said it's media, and she thinks that people should read a little more to help the brain. But it's a 2-hour little audiobook called The Dispatcher. And from what I can see from the description, it's narrated by Zachary Quinto. And the story is one day, not long from now, it becomes almost impossible to murder anyone. 999 times out of 1,000, anyone who is intentionally killed comes back. How? We don't know, but it changes everything. War, crime, daily life. Tony Valdez is a dispatcher, a licensed, bonded professional whose job is to humanely dispatch those whose circumstances put them in death's crosshairs, so they can have a second chance to avoid the Reaper. But when a fellow dispatcher and former friend is apparently kidnapped, Tony learns that there are some things that are worse than death, and that some people are ready to do almost anything to avenge a supposed wrong. It's a race against time for Valdez to find his friend before it's too late, before not even a dispatcher can save him. I also got an answer from my good friend Sky, who says, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, which I agree is a very unique game that had a very unique mechanic, where it's got kind of an isometric view, and you're controlling two brothers, but the gimmick here is that you control one brother with the left joystick and the other brother with the right joystick. So you're, controlling them both at once, and it's kind of like it was the beginning stages of what eventually evolved into games like A Way Out and It Takes Two, which both require two players, but this one required just one person, but you had to use both joysticks and control two characters simultaneously, which was a very interesting way of doing things. But yeah, all three games that I just mentioned, all made by the same guy, the Yosef, fuck the Oscars guy. Yeah. So, definitely a high recommend there. So, really good answers from everyone. Thank you all so much for participating in that. So, with that being said, I say it's about time we wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah, it's late. I've got oh man. I got a long day ahead of me tomorrow and I need to get some sleep.
Right. Say no more, say no more. We all know what that means. So anyways, folks, Thank you all so much for listening. If you have your own hidden gems that you'd like to recommend, be sure to leave a comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you are listening, you can send me an email at mroversoul53@gmail.com. That's MROVERSOUL53@gmail.com. And I'll be sure to read that on the next episode if you do. If you enjoyed this and you're watching it on YouTube, be sure to click that like button. If you are listening on Spotify, be sure to follow. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. Once again, I have been Justin, aka Oversoul, and you can find me on Twitter at Oversoul53, or here, of course, on the YouTube as Oversoul Gaming.
I can be found as the Vaping Fiend on Twitter. I can also be found on TikTok at the.vaping.fiend, as well as Twitch, the Vaping Fiend, and PlayStation Network, the Vaping.
And with all that being said, we'll catch you in the next episode. Good night, everybody.
Bye!